everybody for having me here today. I always appreciate the chance to share a bit of my story in hopes that it might inspire somebody else. My name is Erin Craven. I'm the founder and CEO of UROSPOT. I am a Londoner, born and raised, crusader from CCH, an Ivy grad from Western. And before entrepreneurship, I had about a 22-year career in the corporate world. And when I look back on that career, the one thing I've recognized in hindsight is that I was always an intrapreneur. I was always building something. That's when I felt the most alive in my corporate life, is when I was building a new company, building a new product, launching something, creating a brand. And it was a lot easier to do that with somebody else's money than with my own. But if I take you back to 2019, when all of that changed, the quote I always come back to is, "The universe will never give you peace in something you were never meant to settle in." And I truly never felt like I was meant to settle. I never felt settled in my corporate life. At that time, I was feeling a lot of inner turmoil, a lot of discomfort, and honestly felt like my soul was dying in corporate America. I just didn't feel like I was aligned to my true purpose. And it was also around that time that I was personally struggling with many of the challenges that impact women, usually starting at around age 35. About 10 years before we get through the menopause transition is a period called perimenopause. Every woman on the planet will face this. And we are the majority of the planet, guys, 51%. And so the symptoms that I was experiencing, luckily I ran a pharmaceutical company for almost, 8 years. I spent a lot of my career in healthcare, so I was very familiar with the epidemiology of certain conditions. I'd surrounded myself with health experts. These symptoms are extremely common, but I knew in my heart they weren't normal. So women in this stage of life will start to experience little bladder leaks, urgency, frequency, waking up at night to pee, pelvic organ prolapse. The list goes on and on. But I can tell you that once we are through the menopause transition, looking back, 84% of women will say they experienced these symptoms. 84%. So I went looking for solutions and was extremely frustrated with how dismissed I was in the healthcare system. So dismissed, disregarded, told what I was experiencing was normal. What did you expect? You had children, get on with it. And I was also very unsatisfied with the solutions that were being offered. I didn't want surgery. I didn't want to take medication with a terrible side effect profile. I didn't have time in my life to remember to do exercises at stoplights. It just wasn't working for me. And I didn't want any hands and instruments inside my body, and I didn't want to take my clothes off at the doctor's office. So I just knew that there had to be a better way. And having worked in innovation and in healthcare for most of my career, I was exposed to a technology from Europe that looked like it could be very useful and could help me with my problems. And as I experienced that technology, which basically grows new muscle fibers for you, it actually strengthens and restores the fitness capacity of the pelvic floor muscles. So think about it like a machine that makes your biceps grow, except it's making your pelvic floor muscles grow, which is the cause of a lot of these problems. As I tried this technology, the entire concept for UROSPOT came to me in a moment. And I always say I'm so grateful for the idea that chose to use me. And in that moment, I was like, what if there was a place? What if there was a place where women could go and not feel dismissed, where they could be treated as they should be in the healthcare system, where they could feel cared for, seen, understood, and we could solve this problem in a modern way that doesn't require them to do any of the things that women hate to do in healthcare appointments. And I thought, what if we could educate women and empower them about this part of our journey as a woman, and we could help them regain confidence and freedom and make these issues go away. And so during that time, I would work all day at 3M as a vice president, and I would work all night on this idea. And I surrounded myself with healthcare professionals. I was very fortunate from my previous life as running a pharmaceutical company to know who to talk to. And I worked with the best in this space, and we built an evidence-based care model that we have trademarked as pelvic health done differently. And it's like no other. It is evidence-based. It is intradisciplinary. It combines the best of technology with the best of education and health coaching, delivered by pelvic health experts, not delivered by somebody at a medical spa who also does your nails and Botox. Delivered by pelvic health registered professionals, and experts in a very personalized environment. And yes, we do treat men also. I am very focused on women today, but we do treat men as well. So from this point on, I just kept taking the next step. I didn't know how to do this. I just kept taking the next step. And with every step, I found something would rise to meet my foot. I didn't have to worry about the how. It just kind of kept showing up with each step that I took. And it began naturally progressing to the point where I had to make a decision to leave my corporate life and go all in on an unproven concept. I remember the day we signed the lease for our first location in London and signed a 10-year lease, and my husband was just like, there's no turning back. Like, you just signed a 10-year lease. And that's when it kind of hit me like, oh my God, what am I doing? But I believed in this. I absolutely believed in this. And during that time, so many people that I did work with in my corporate life truly thought I was crazy. They really did. What are you doing? I'm leaving the golden handcuffs. Guys, I had the EA, I had the RSUs, I had the company car, I had a staff of like 200. If you looked at my resume through a corporate lens, I had made it. But I just knew in my heart that I hated it, and I didn't want to do it anymore. And this idea that I kept thinking about was what I felt truly aligned to. So, now I always say sometimes crazy is just being right a little bit early. So we opened our first clinic on October 7th. I left 3M in May. And from May to October, what I focused on first and foremost was building the brand. Our service and our operations have pivoted. They have adjusted as we've gone over these last 6 years. As we learn more, we do better. But what has never wavered is the brand. Not once. It has been consistent from day one, which is the number one rule of branding. So the hours that we put into defining the brand architecture, defining who our customer was, our brand personality, the insights that were going to be critical to our core messaging so that women would say, oh my gosh, they know me, they get me, they see me. All of this is the same today as it was 6 years ago, and that's something I'm personally extremely proud of. So we opened our doors October 7th. What happened 4 months later? Yeah. And the joke I always make is like, I spent so much of my career in strategic planning. I actually think that's one of my personal strengths. I missed global pandemic on my SWOT analysis. Did not see that in the threats section. And we had to close our doors, just like everybody else in wave 1. Wave 2, we were deemed essential, thank God, but wave 1, we had to close our doors. But I see a lot of gifts from that time. One is that I think the most personal growth I've ever experienced in my career happened during that time. I experienced more anxiety than I have ever experienced in my life. I was not an anxious person. I was always super confident. I don't know, I just knew everything would work out. During that time, there was a level of anxiety, also thanks to perimenopause at that time, that I was just like, what is happening? And I quickly realized that I was gonna have to invest a lot of time on my mindset. And that's where I put so much work in to help me learn how to deal with fear, how to get over fear, how to face it, what it really meant. And I think that was honestly one of the biggest gifts I could take away from that time. The other thing during COVID is we made a conscious decision to play offense. We had a strategic plan that called for opening more clinics. I really wanted to take this further into the country. And we used the gift of time. I had this time, the business was closed, and I couldn't sit there and just do nothing. And so I used that time to build and accelerate a franchise model for UROSPOT. And I really wanted to always build the company as a platform. So one, we were gonna help change women's lives by giving them their freedom and confidence back and addressing a major part of the gender gap in healthcare. But two, I wanted to create an opportunity for women to become entrepreneurs. And franchising is an incredible vehicle for this, especially for women, I find, because you're in business for yourself, but you are never, ever by yourself. You're betting on yourself, but you're doing that with a proven business model. Franchising was invented by a woman. Franchising is the 12th largest industry in Canada. $120 billion of our GDP comes from franchising. 1 in 10 Canadians are employed directly or indirectly in a franchise system, 1 in 10. And everybody here today, you are going to interact today with at least 3 to 5 franchise businesses, and you probably don't even know it. The number of female-owned franchises has increased by 35% in the last 10 years, and now 37% of franchise owners in Canada, franchisees, are women. So we ended up awarding our first franchise location in 2021. So I used 2020 to really learn and how to do franchising and build the company. And then we sold the first, or awarded the first ones in 2021, and we opened them in 2022. Since then, we have actively scaled across the country. We have 22 locations across Canada. And we have 8 more opening soon, so that will be 30. And one of the things that I think I'm most proud of is that we haven't spent a single penny on marketing our franchise system, not one penny. And the typical statistics are that you have to vet over 1,000 leads to get one solid franchise partner. And 65% of franchise systems typically have only awarded one system after 2 years of just trying. We haven't had any issues with that. So, and I really believe it's because of our purpose. I believe it's because of our values, the impact that we're making on people's lives, the opportunity this creates for women, and obviously a solid operating system behind it. But the right partners just continue to show up. And when I see these women, actually one of them is here today, Stephanie Neskis, who owns Eurospot Windsor. And when I see these women who have bet on themselves and have gone on to build these great businesses and then go on to become multi-unit owners, like these women are badass, they are business owners. And that to me is like the best reward I could have ever had from building this system. So I really appreciate, 15 minutes is short to tell the whole story, but I really appreciate the opportunity to get to share a bit of my journey. Like I said, I hope it inspires somebody who maybe has a dream or has this idea that won't leave you. And if you are that person with that idea that just keeps, living in your brain, I'll end with one small piece of advice, which is to be stubborn with your vision, be flexible with how you get there, and be ruthless with your integrity and resiliency. Thank you.